Education meeting of May 12th,
So moved.
Second.
all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Abstain. Mr. President, I need to abstain from that because I did not attend the meeting. Perhaps you need a roll call then? That's 512. 512, so. You can just mark an abstention.
Yeah. You're better, the Robert's rules.
That would be the third choice.
All right. Okay, next we have the approval of draft minutes of the special Board of Education meeting of May 19, 2025. May I have a motion to approve minutes May 19, 2025?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, next we have the budget hearing for the FY25 amendment. May I have a motion to approve, to open the public hearing for the FY25 budget amendments?
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Member Anshaw,
Aye.
member Gruner,
Aye.
member Senta,
Aye.
member Ms. Peterson. Aye. Member Mr. Peterson.
Aye.
Member Thornton. Aye. Member Red.
Aye.
Feels motion. Does anyone in the audience, if you need a copy, we do that. They don't. Board members, it is accessible through the board. Thank you, Mr. President. President Rogers, Vice President Peterson, members of the Board of Education, it is my honor to deliver the first presentation of the live stream era. The final FY25 amendment is presented unchanged from the amendment hearing earlier in April. To review the purpose of the FY25 budget amendment was to account for the various funds transfers approved by the board this year that were originally budgeted for when the original budget was adopted in August. You can flip to the second slide for the detailed funds that were transferred. They are now included in the amended budget. The amendment also provided us an opportunity to review whether any future expenditures could be incorporated into this year's budget as a result of greater return on investments than originally estimated. Materials needed for the implementation of the district's new science curriculum are now included in the budget. The next slides will summarize the difference from the original budget and the amended budget. Are there any questions so far?
No.
As we move to the slide marked education fund, I'm going to spend a little more time on this fund only because I want to review what the rows and columns mean. And that pattern gates across each slide. The first row represents the beginning actual audited July 1st, 2024 fund balance. See that both numbers are the same in the original and the amendment. The next row will identify the original versus the amended revenue projections. We'll see difference there. You'll notice that there's a 1.28 million more in revenue that was originally budgeted for. And that is because when we do a fund transfer in or out, the state budget will recognize that either as a revenue expenditure. There's not necessarily 1.2 million dollars coming in. That sure number is $271,000. That includes $70,000 more in interest earnings, and the rest is going up from additional state and local grant funding that we did not anticipate that would begin August. The next row will identify the original versus the amended expenditure projections. And the amendment again will show that 1.24 million more expenditures than we originally budgeted for. Same reason treating the fund transfers out as expenditures. The amended budget though now includes $105,000 in expenditures for the new science curriculum that was approved in April. The next rows then show the net revenue versus expenditures between the original amended budgets, with the resulting total fund balance projected to increase by $46,000 over the original budgeted fund balance. Are there any questions on this slide?
No.
For the remaining funds, I'm just going to highlight the net change to the projected fund. So as we move into slide 5 for the operation and maintenance fund, you'll notice the total fund balance will increase by $87,000, which is $7,000 more projected, and it was primarily based. Interesting. Questions on the other?
No.
Slide 6 will show the bond and interest fund. Interest fund will increase by $6,000 as opposed to, will increase by $6,000 as opposed to the predicted $5,000 deficit. And that's solely based on the interest income. Slide 7, but any questions on bond and interest? Okay, slide 7 reveals the budget will decrease the ending balance in the transportation fund by $71,000 of the amendment. That's primarily due to the reason referenced in our business report. The state is only going to reimburse us at 80% on our regulated special reimbursements for categoricals. And as you can see, those will go down to 71 and 61 next year. So we will definitely have to budget next year a little bit lower on the revenue side. Next slide, IMRF and Social Security funds. We will be decreasing our total fund balance by $386,000. And that's primarily that we did not levy in that fund machine. So we plan to do that. And so that. Any questions on IMRF and Social Security? Our favorite fund, the capital fund. Our deficit will increase. We projected a $2.6 million deficit. That will increase to a $2.8 million deficit. And that's because we included all of the renovations that were taking place at Evergreen, all the renovations at Benjamin. And when we first started out this budget year, we were predicting that we would be able to do. And I'm happy that we are. So I should caution that although this is a deficit spend, the fund is still projected to finish with over $1 million left at the end. But as we get audited, a lot of these payments are due till August, so we'll finish here. Questions on the debt? Working cash fund, next slide. Net deficit, the fund will decrease by $192,000 due to the increased earnings on investment. The deficit, however, is just a result that we had to abate that fund to issue up. So that's the only reason why there's a deficit for the year in the working cash fund. In the next slide, tort fund, it's just projected to increase by $400. Questions on either the working cash or the tort fund? So the final slide shows the summary of each fund of the FY25 net impact on our total. The amended budget will decrease the originally budgeted deficit from $4 million to $3.9 million. It is important to note that the actual audited deficit will be much less, as many of the capital expenditures will not be made until. Are there any final questions before we close the year?
I do have one statement, Dr. Felix, just for any members of the public who are watching through our live cast. This presentation material, along with all other board packet documentation, is available through BoardBook. So if you access our website under this meeting agenda, you'll be able to see the slides and stuff.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have public comments specific to the FY25 budget amendments. Does anybody have public comment? Seeing none, we will move on to, is there any additional board discussion? Okay, may I have a motion to adjourn the public hearing and return to open session?
So moved. Second.
Roll call please.
Member Ingstrom,
Aye.
member Jordan,
Aye.
member Sutton,
Aye.
member Miss Peterson. Aye. Member Mr. Peterson,
Aye.
member Galantis. Aye. Member Rogers.
Aye. Thank you. And now the exciting school improvement plan. So first we have Evergreen.
Yes. Thank you for having me in to talk about the amazing things that have happened at Evergreen this year. We're going to review our school improvement plan. So hopefully you're following along on your computers. If you need a paper copy, please let me know. As Dr. Felix mentioned, I made an abundance of copies. So if you would like some extras for home, please feel free to take it. So this year at Evergreen, we really focused on two specific goals. Our first goal was to increase the capacity of our staff members to address the many different needs of our Evergreen students. We were really looking at like that social and emotional piece. So we implemented morning meetings, used second step lessons in our gen ed classrooms versus in the past, it was just provided by our social workers. We implemented CHAMPS, which is a behavior management expectation structure put into classrooms, and really targeted some of our social work lessons. So we were continuing to look at kind of our SEL needs at Evergreen and how our staff can best support our students. So this year with our morning meetings, we did that 5 days a week, 20 minutes a day. When students came into the building, the first thing every student did was do a morning meeting with their gen ed teachers. It was led by our gen ed teachers, but then we also had our specialists or our specials teachers push into specific classrooms to help support, especially with those kids that maybe needed that extra relationship with another trusted adult in the building. We were very targeted with which staff members we were putting into which classrooms. Our second step lessons were taught in our gen ed classroom by our gen ed teachers, either during that time or outside of that morning meeting time. And then the teachers also targeted specific SEL lessons based on their classroom's needs. So if 2 days ago they had some difficulty at recess with sharing and how to make sure that you're including everyone in on a game, the gen ed teachers would then use the morning meeting time to go over what would be expectations. How do you react if someone says you can't play the game, or if someone comes over and says, can we play this game with you? How do you react as a student of, sure, come on in, or we have enough players, but can you play the next round, and kind of give some of those talking pieces. Our social workers also then used an additional curriculum this year, Everyday Speech, which is another SEL curriculum where they were then targeting lessons as well, so beyond the second step. And our morning meetings really helped to build that classroom community and trust between the students and each other as well as their teacher. If you go to slide 3, I believe, 4, slide 4, our 4th grade students are the only student population at Evergreen that take the 5 Essentials survey. So if you just take a look, again, different population of students or cohort of students, but last year was 2024, so those would be our current 5th graders. And then this year in 2025, there was a significant improvement in regards to like teacher-student relationships. So I think a part of that is attributed to our morning meeting structure. This next slide, slide 5, is just an example of some of the topics that second step in Everyday Speech we're targeting this year with their lessons, as well as we created some staff resource ports within our structure to make sure that teachers had additional resources when they did have something outside of the second step lesson, or that lesson that was only 1 day, they really need to do that maybe 3 or 4 more days. That was some additional resources for teachers. In addition, on slide 6, we had SACID, which is the co-op that we are partnership with, in to train our teachers on CHAMPS. CHAMPS is an expectation system for teachers to use in their classrooms, stands for Conversation, Help, Activity, Movement, Participation, and Success. So essentially all teachers are using that in their classrooms so that Evergreen students know no matter where they go in the building, what the expectations are during a lesson or during an activity. And I think that's really helped our students to know what's expected of them in this location versus this location or during this lesson. Our mental health team also trained our staff on multiple things this year: de-escalation strategies, how to use calming corners in the classroom effectively, shared also about how to implement morning meetings and be successful with that, and then created a great resource library for staff to use. Another aspect of kind of building the capacity of our teachers is we looked primarily at our support calls and our behavior referrals this year and started tracking students based on their needs a little bit more deliberately than we have in the past. So if you look on slide 7, August through December, we had 157 support calls, and then January through May, we had 127. A support call is any time that a staff member maybe uses the walkie-talkie or calls the office saying that they have a student who is in need of some additional support. Either it's because they're highly emotional, maybe they're frustrated by something and the teacher has kind of tried multiple things to help get them out of it, but they maybe can't continue teaching because the student is needing some support. That's when my amazing team kind of come in to see how they can help. So either Mrs. Agris or myself or any of our social workers or any of our SPED teachers that might be available, pop in to see, hey, how can I help? Sometimes it's just that the student needs more time, but someone else is sitting by that student to help them. Or sometimes it's, hey, they need to take a break in the hallway. Now there's an additional person to help support them. So seeing that, we looked at the students that were really getting more support calls than maybe some other students to see what tier 2 or tier 3 interventions we needed to put in place to support those students, because it was becoming more of a pattern behavior, indicating that it was something that wasn't just a one-off. And so by putting those things in place, you can see that we did decrease the number of support calls that we needed for students. Slide 8 is looking at just those number of support calls per grade level. And again, some students had many support calls and some students it was maybe only 1 or 2. But we've never, prior to this past year, really looked at the data and tracked it this way to really have a plan. And then slide 9 was looking at our referral data. Level 3 referrals are the referrals that come to the office to be more office managed. So you can see the number from August, December to January, May. And if you take a look at slide 10, there's the breakdown per grade level. And with that, we also were able to kind of track what are the behaviors that we're seeing most frequently. Inappropriate or unsafe physical contact, specifically during recess, is always a big one. Some disrespectful behavior, inappropriate verbal comments, and then first grade bathroom behavior was something that we targeted. So with that information, we put into place tier 2 and tier 3 interventions for specific students. And then if it was more of a whole grade level issue, we put into things in place during their morning meetings and things to help support that. With our tier 2 and tier 3 interventions, we were able to be targeted 11 students with specific behavioral tier 2 or tier 3 interventions. 6 out of the 11 really decreased their behavior based on what we put into place. And again, we weren't just looking at a student with the number of referrals, it was the number of referrals in the same behavior. So if they had 3 behavior referrals for physical contact during recess, then we really targeted physical contact during recess versus they had 1 for talking and then they had 1 for recess and then they had 1 for bathroom. Those were kind of 3 separate instances. We were trying to find those patterns that we could really put an intervention in and support that. And then we just had in 3rd grade a single case that really needed some extra support. So that's where that number is discrepant from the other grade levels. Next steps moving forward, we're going to continue our morning meetings, continuing our second steps, pretty much a continuation of all the great things that we put into place this year, continuing kind of tracking and analysis to make sure that we're doing those interventions that are needed for those kiddos. And then really extending our training for our lunchroom supervisors as well, to make sure that they have the capacity and the same general outlook and philosophy as Evergreen does when they're dealing with most of the lunchroom and recess behaviors, where we see the most kind of, because it's the most unstructured, that's where we see some of the most behaviors. Any questions on goal 1?
Oh, good.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, for your support calls, and this may be a part of your future tracking that you're doing or your benchmarking, is there a number of calls that you're aiming to get down to?
Less than that.
Yeah. Noted.
No, now that let me phrase. We have a lot of supports at Evergreen, which is fantastic, but I think sometimes this year, we as an admin team haven't put into place our structures for the staff to know what really is a support call and what is truly like, let's just kind of plan, ignore, wait it out. Has it been 5 minutes or has it been 10 minutes? And so we're working on a structure so that, we want to be very supportive to teachers and give them the help that they need. But also it's not the crutch of, oh, I'm just gonna call the office because this child's been
Right.
crying for 5 minutes. And maybe they're just having a rough day and sometimes they need to just take a moment and then they'll be able to work itself out.
Sure.
So, our goal would be to at least decrease that, like maybe our starting point would be where we ended the year. And then just, be able to decrease from there. That would be our goal.
Yes,
Typically, what I've seen with those types of data points is the school may say, we want to decrease the number of referrals by 5%.
Yeah.
Whatever. Because you're not gonna find anywhere to publish, but the ideal number is
Right.
so many per 100 students or something like. Though that type of data does not exist.
compliance.
Yeah, and I think Sarah's point about, I refer to that as kind of the fidelity of the data. You really want to make sure that next year, when you're making that comparison, comparing apples to apples. Because if they've done a lot of good work with improving the staff's understanding about when you should contact, or on the other end, when staff responds.
Yeah.
The training that they've had, how effective they are, because that's gonna impact the next time an
Right.
incident comes up. Because a part of that helps a child understand, well, I need to take a deep breath before I explode. That's gonna help reduce the data, or the overall data.
And even educating parents on like what's appropriate to.
That's true.
I just have a couple questions there. I love that you guys are continuing to implement a lot of these practices next year with camps. And do you think that the teachers have found that to be beneficial, that they can focus more time on teaching instead of managing behaviors and or like, oh, our whole level should be 1 or whatever? Have the teachers found that too, or it was still their first year and they're still feeling it out? Totally.
I think those that were really consistent with it.
Okay,
Found great benefit to it. For those that, it took a little while to get into the groove or that, it was unfamiliar to them and this was kind of a change and they weren't as consistent with it, I think they've, I don't really see the benefit. But for those teachers that were really consistent with it, I think that there was great benefit. For example, if kids are at carpet during music, they have different expectations when they're at carpet at music. Maybe they can move around, maybe they can't. Maybe they can whisper to their friends, but then when they're at carpet in first grade, maybe they're supposed to be in one spot and quiet. So like being able to preemptively share those is really helpful. And then for those of us who are coming in that are also then helping to support perhaps a student, it's helpful for us if we can also look and see, oh, the CHAMPS expectations, level 0, voice stay in your spot, then I can help that child to follow those expectations. So the goal is to have SASIG come in again this upcoming year and do a follow-up training so that we're consistent with this. This isn't a one and done. And I think the more that people just start the year off with that expectation, the more successful we'll be.
yeah, and it'll be interesting to see too, since these kids will already had a year of it.
Yes.
And following next year, they should have some familiarity with
Yes.
it. Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Question about, so the data that you collected on the behaviors for, say, first grade, you mentioned like they were having like bathroom issues, which common thing in first grade. Do you guys plan on like front loading the second graders next year with like bathroom expectations and like hardcore, like, have you guys thought, I know this is, still finishing up this year, but have you guys thought about that yet, or?
Yes,
Okay.
so we've taken some of this data to see like at the beginning of the school year, what do we really need to make sure that we have in place that we're targeting with students and specific student groups, as well as making sure that we're consistent with reviewing that, just like, other content areas of maybe every 6 to 8 weeks, we're, going in or instructing teachers during the morning meeting, okay, can you please do a review of these expectations? Here's what we want you to kind of share out, so that we can be, that consistency piece is key. And with the first graders with the bathroom, in kindergarten, they didn't have to use,
Oh, yeah.
they were mostly in their classroom stalls in their kindergarten room, so then it's like, oh, space. Yeah, I've gone to public washrooms before, so, you know, those typically happen earlier in the year and then later in the year, but again, it's just something like, oh yeah, okay, we need to, first grade teachers, you really need to go over your expectations for the bathroom, because in kindergarten, they just went to the bathroom in their classroom and
Yeah.
that was it.
Awesome. Oh, that was thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Just for comment too, I just think, wonderful how much data you're gathering and the staff is doing a lot of this baseline metrics. I love the PD you guys are providing. I just know how important it is for teachers to have their student behavioral issues, supported. And I like how independent too, you're making everybody just work on that.
The level 3 referrals that you were tracking, is that, like a delineation where parents would get notified
Yeah.
for any of these specific issues?
For all of them.
For all the
All
levels that it would?
levels.
Okay, is that like a class dojo type thing that they would get notified?
Typically, depending on what the situation is, it's either the teacher is reaching out to the parent. Either via email or phone call. We always suggest a phone call is better than an email. Or it's either Mrs. Agris or myself that are reaching out to say this was the situation that occurred. We always try and make sure that that communication is very clear so that kids aren't getting off of the bus or walking home and saying, this is what happened, and we want to be able to say, wait, this is what happened before they get home.
There's also a form that gets sent home.
Yes.
Oh,
That parents have to sign, like, we sign, students sign, then the parents sign, they have to bring it back.
that's awesome.
And clarify, that's all levels or just level 3?
Level 3, level 2s are more, teacher managed. It is our, expectation for teachers that they're reaching out to families if there's a level 2, behavioral situation. That is typically either phone call or email again. But what we've tried to instill in our staff this year is that if you're having a conversation with a student about a, you know, specific behavior that got to the point where you needed, like, it was a thing that day, that the parent should be notified.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, goal 2 was to increase collaboration amongst the staff to increase student engagement and academic growth. When I wrote this goal with my BLT team last year, we really focused on the 5 essential survey data. So we were kind of looking at 3 specific areas. First one was teacher trust. And we wanted to increase our responses on the 5 essential survey. As you can see, we didn't increase, but we didn't go down too far. We kind of stayed a little flat. And if you go to slide 16, you can see the breakdown of kind of like the questions that were asked of teachers during for the teacher trust on that slide. Our focus 2 was on collective responsibility, saying we were hoping to increase our responses on the 5 essential survey. I'm on slide 17. Again, stayed pretty neutral. And if you look on slide 18, that also delineates kind of what some of those questions were for the teachers and the staff. And then focus area 3 was collaborative practices. Again, wanting to increase our 5 essential survey and collaborative practices. We kind of stayed pretty neutral in all 3 of those. We have the staff that take the 5 essential surveys are our teaching assistants and any certified staff, but not office staff. So we have, hopefully if we have enough, well, if all of our staff make it, we have about 60 staff members that take it. I think this year we had about 52 that took it. So not necessarily the results that we were looking for, but again, just another area where I think we need to do some more specific work in regards to the teacher trust and the collaboration we're having and the conversations that we're having and making sure that we're entering everything with a very open, honest, we're all here for the right reasons for the same thing as we move forward. One area that we also really focused on slide 21 was getting our staff to observe other staff members more frequently. And if you look at our 2024 data, that's the left-hand column compared to 2025, we really increased the number of opportunities that staff had to go into other people's classrooms, which I think is a really great benefit to all involved. And if you look at slide 22, just again, we really increased in those areas as well. I've told my staff numerous times that I probably have learned more as a teacher as soon as I walked out of the classroom and started seeing all the other people teaching. So trying to instill in staff that like they're gonna learn so much more when they can see other people teaching and how they're handling behavior management or how they're implementing CHAMPS in their classroom. So really, you know, trying to gear our practices towards that. And then our final two slides, since we were focusing on collaboration to help student growth and student academic achievement, we do have our math data and our ELA data. As you can see, they're hard to read, but our students that are in urgent intervention, which is the 10th percentile or below, those did decrease, I think at a good pace, so to speak, in those areas. And we did see growth in our students that did meet and exceed expectations. I know it's tiny, my apologies, in both areas. So I think just with continued collaboration, we'll be able to continue to improve our practices. So moving forward, we're gonna sit down with all of our staff that take the 5 Essential Survey, but just in general, all of the staff to share the results of the survey, really focus on our collaborative practices, gather feedback from all staff areas for improvement, continue to encourage staff and to observe one another and to gather feedback and give feedback. That was also the piece where we were able to give a lot of opportunities for staff to observe other staff. But what's the next step of now can they sit down and talk about what they saw and what they observed? And just continue to create structures for continued intentional collaboration. Questions?
Sarah, can I just ask, sure, just to clarify,
Yeah.
so for the STAR data,
Yes.
math, for example, so overall fall, it was. The urgent intervention was 6.1%, and then you guys decreased it in the spring to 2.6. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, so, and essentially all of those. On watch, intervention, urgent intervention, I mean, they all got. You guys need growth in all of them, so.
Right.
Okay.
Either they shrunk, which was what was
Right.
before, which then caused other ones to grow. Yeah.
Okay, and then the same thing for ELA then, overall. Fall was 5.7 for urgent intervention and then spring was 1.5. Wow, okay. Thank you.
Sarah, for the focus areas and the teacher trust laws, those graphs that you have.
Yeah.
Is there a benchmark in the, I guess, across industry that where typically our people are registering at? Like where you register at like 48 and is that commonplace in areas?
In areas, I don't know. I haven't really been able to dive deeper into other like elementary schools around the area. I do know there is one report that it wasn't populating this year's data yet, where it can show kind of the track record of just evergreen over the last 4 years. And so you do see, I would have loved to include those graphs, but it was like,
Sure. Yeah.
didn't have this year's data, where you do see the trajectory is going in the right direction. Where we didn't see as much growth this year, but if you see kind of where we were 3 years ago
Right.
compared to now, there's some good growth in those areas. And I think it's, you know, something that we are gonna continue to look at.
Sure.
I know Benjamin's data looks significantly different than ours in regards to some of these areas, so I'm gonna rely on Mike, continuing to rely on Mike, I rely on Mike for a lot of things. But continue to, you know, seek his guidance of what's something that you're doing at Benjamin
Yeah.
that's working really well that maybe I should be doing at
Right.
Evergreen.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Okay, sure. Yes, I'd like to thank the Board of Education for allowing me to present the Benjamin School Improvement Plan follow-up. I'd also like to give Dr. Fela some recognition for really setting the standard for how presentations should be given in the live streaming era that we're in. Argo, we have a lot of different data points, unlike, I'm just saying this for time, because it's been talked about in my length. So I'm gonna try to go through the data points quickly, because we have a lot more data points, and then, you can follow with questions either as I'm going through or at the end, it's up to you. So the first goal is to improve student achievement by using multiple qualitative and quantitative data points. The first one is the IAR, which unfortunately we do not have. Usually at this time we have the early IAR scores back. I'm able to at least present those early scores to you, but we do not have those yet. So moving on to STAR, we were able to achieve our 3% growth in both reading meets and exceeds. I'm going from 48 to 51, reading approaching meets and exceeds, math approaching meets and exceed, all with 3%. We did not achieve that, and that's going to be one of the areas of focus again is in math meets and exceeds. Looking at the data and going through it, one of the things that I think, knowing that it's one data point, we've got a lot of different other data points. I'm very hopeful about our IAR scores when they do come in. I did take time to sit down with each student this year before they took the IAR individually outside ELA classrooms and talk with each one of them about what their score was and how they think they're going to do if they're talk about taking their time and really putting the effort in, because I think motivation, effort, individual accountability, I think at the middle school comes more and more of a part of it, because they take the STAR 3 times a year minimally, and doing it for all their school career, especially when you get to the upper grade levels. There's a lot of STAR again, which was emphasized when we the one time because of post-COVID, the high school used our STAR scores instead of the state test or the what was it at the time? PSAT, and our 8th grade STAR scores skyrocketed that time because of the motivation. But there are other things that we are doing and hope to do. One thing that we started this year and we're expanding next year is with our math classes, creating smaller math classes. And the way we're able to do that is we have support classes called RTI math classes, which basically if we identify a student that needs more math assistance, we're able to pull them out and give them some assistance. It does take them away from a special or another class that we have to pull them from because it's additional support. So we've gotten away from that this year. We've reduced it to we have 3 of those classes, and then next year we're only going to have 2 of those classes because I'm using that math teacher instead to split the class to create a smaller class size. We did that this year, and we had 2 7th grade classes that were both taught by Miss Ahrens and Miss Moore. So instead of having 24, 25 in class, one had like 13, the other one had 12. So there's a lot more individual attention given to those students, able to answer more questions, able to walk around more. And so we've seen great results as far as the classroom data and grades and things of that nature. Again, hopefully next year I'm doing the same thing in 8th grade where Miss Ahrens will teach an 8th grade section, the same as Miss Moore. And so we'll just have 2 RTI math classes, one by Miss Fernandez and one by Mr. Baker. So we'll have a mix of both. And if we continue to see the growth, the problem with the RTI math classes is you have to make the schedule fit the period that the teacher's available. So this really, I think, is an opening it up to better math instruction for the students. Other things is just looking at the PD options that we have with our STAR Renaissance scores, looking at how other different reports that we have available to us using the STAR screening reports. Looking at the times that students use to take the test, and a lot of times you can see, okay, well, that kid took it in like 5 minutes compared to the rest, having them retake to give their best effort. So we can improve not only the STAR scores, but most importantly, improve our math knowledge for our students. Next is our HMH growth measure. That's our ELA curriculum.
BOY stands for beginning of year, not just boy, not just tracking them. So just quickly go through this because we had pretty good results with this. So beginning of year, end of year grew 17% in fifth grade, 20% in sixth grade, 9% in both seventh and eighth grade, but they also both started at a higher level when they hit their beginning of year information. ISA, which is the science assessment, again, that's run by the states. We do not have that information yet, and it truly is under the umbrella of Pearson Access Next now. Greg, I would give my hats off to Greg too, because he did provide new training for that for this year. And that's really, hopefully when we get those data points in, we've done really well in science in our district, so I'm sure that will continue. 5 essential survey. So one of our goals was to improve from strong to very strong in 2 of the 5 areas. We did achieve that this year in effective leadership and collaborative teachers. We have a process that we use. We look at last year's data. We try to pinpoint areas of growth. We compliment the students because this information is coming from the teachers and the students. So having the students again buy into this is really important. Saying things like, hey, last year you guys really did a great job using, putting effort into this. We appreciate it so much. You're taking this seriously, guys. And using, just those little phrases to hopefully telling them to read the questions carefully. I still have problems with them asking questions about how they perceive their classmates. So it's like, I don't know how they would know that, but so some of the questions are still a little, but as a school, I'm very proud of what we did. One of the things specific, so there's sometimes you can pinpoint using data, a specific thing that we did, and I think we did that with collaborative teachers. Similar to what Ms. Smith said about observing teachers. So 2 of the questions, if not 3, under this category talk about observing another teacher in your school. How often have you done that? What have you done for that? For different reasons. And so we went from last year 75% saying that we have not done it to this year only 5%. And we did that because we created an observation day. Now we can do that at the middle school because we have a schedule that enables us to do that. So basically just on a day, we said that we're going to have a day where either during your team or your plan, that it's flexible, they have more choices, they're going to go in and observe another teacher. Again, not to just improve the 5 essential survey, although that is a goal, but so that it is a good practice, as Ms. Smith said, about learning from your peers, learning from your experts. Mr. Allard and Mr. Bradbury have been by each other forever, and they're probably, great. They connect a lot, but they've never been able to go in each other's class and see them teach science, even though they both do that. So they were able to do that this year. So it comes with great benefits. The other one was in effective leadership. Just want to point out, I don't do this a lot, but I'm very proud of the fact that, in the categories of principal, it has confidence in the staff's expertise. As a staff, we trust the principal, we can discuss feelings, concerns and problems with the principal. The principal looks out for the personal welfare of staff. The principal places the needs of children above his own personal or political interests, was all at 100%. So between agree and strongly agree, nobody that said otherwise. And that's a result of the staff and us working together. This is not a one-time thing. It takes daily attention for this whole survey, true open door policy, having the trust that people will come to you with the problem, because I can only solve problems. I say to the parents all the time, I can only solve a problem if I know about it. And so just getting out there, going to meetings, going to team meetings, going to those things. So I'm very happy with the 5 essential survey. Next slide just shows our strength overall. Another good one for teachers was academic personalism, which basically means that they went out and connected with students And like, questions like, teacher went out of their way to those types of categories, and that went up a significant amount of 25% this year. So for next year, we're looking at the survey, or I'm looking at the survey already. One for the students is writing a problem for another student to solve. And looking at it, it's like, do we do that? I don't think so, based on the student response. So that's something that can easily be solved. And as a staff, improving the that they have basically some say in determining the professional development that we do, the in-services that we do. So it wasn't really low, but it was lower than some of our other scores. So that's something that we can see to fix. Relationship data, we won't spend too much time on this, but this is the part where we talk about how we know our students. We've done this for quite some time. Sit down, you used to be in a big staff learning meeting. We've got the idea, I didn't get the idea, the instructional coaches got the idea, Angela, Anthony back there, to switch it to team meetings. So it's a smaller setting, and she really did a great job of following up multiple times with the staff in that area, bringing them resources, talking about strategies, and just formatting, making it really look easily, so we could sort the data, something called Looker Studio, that they can use to really format and kind of like, okay, well, let's sort the data a different way and see what it looks like. So she's got ideas for next year as well, but I'm really appreciative of the job that she's done with that relationship data. Fish velocity won't go too much, but we did have a great increase, and it didn't get into your packet because I opened up the giant box of fish slips and realized that I should have been counting those all the year instead of at the end, getting ready for the board presentation. So 5th grade went up from 424 to 546, and the fish slips again are slips that they get for doing something good, for showing one of the play, be there, choose your attitude, make my day. Make their day, not make my day, like Lenny's would make their day. So we went up 424 to 546 in 5th grade, 6th grade 219 to 780. 7th grade 343 to 456, and then 8th grade 412 to 869. Again, sometimes you're trying to figure out why the data increased so much. I can guarantee you I know why 8th grade data increased so much, and also have to start looking at when fish slips are handed out and then when they're turned back in, because the 8th grade, I think probably for a long time, once they got to 7th and 8th grade, didn't cash those fish slips in. And then this year we had a raffle for guitar with an amp. And you would have thought that we were giving away a Cadillac Escalade to someone, because all the 8th graders started pouring in all their fish slips, and I'm looking at the colors and go, this is from 5th grade, they're just turning it in now. And so there was a great increase in that. And then 8th grader won't get some, but for that. But again, that's just kind of going from the proactive side of behavior management, and we'll get to the other side in a little bit. Community, again, getting back to the community, I think it's important middle school students, think about their community and outside the world at this age level. So in addition to all the NJHS stuff that you see there, student council also had a canned food drive, also gave pop tabs to Ronald McDonald House. We had 2 school-wide events, with one with the Rotary Club for Winter Coat Drive, and one huge successful thing that we did for the household good for veterans, the Midwest Shelter for Homeless Veterans, collecting household goods for them. We had a lot of people turn things in for that. So we're very happy with that, in addition to the money that we raised for the different charities. Behavior, okay. So when you look at the behavior chart, and I did not number my slides, so Miss Smith, good job, Smith. But the one that says BMS behavior chart. So I want to kind of break this down because I anticipate some questions on this one. So we have last year compared to this year, we had 49 students with referrals compared to 57 this year. Repeat offenders 13 to 22. Modified programs, just kind of like an in-school where they sit in the office, get work done. That went from 7 to 11. And then this was 74 total behavior incidents to 173. Definitely not what we were looking for when we set the goal to reduce, which we did last year, but not this year. So when you're breaking this down, you look at that difference between 13 and 22, or at least I looked at the difference between the 13 and 22 repeat offenders. And then really digging into the repeat offender column. I pulled 7 students with the most referrals, and you look, that was responsible for 75. So 7 students responsible for 75 of those referrals. Which obviously is something that we don't want. And it's something that when you say that number, you're like, oh, you're not doing anything to like stop that, but that, you know, is definitely not the case. You know, increased communication to parents, more specific direct communication, you know, personal meetings, things of that nature. Support from both the teachers and then, you know, like Ms. Smith said, like the team, the psychologist, social worker, providing SEL help, myself, and then coming up with specific behavior plans. You know, the teachers from their end, something I know that we need to continue to work on, similar to what Ms. Smith said, is I'm not talking about the repeat offenders, now kind of switching to the overall, is taking the time to, you know, especially as the year progresses, you know, you can see kind of an increase in the amount of referrals. And so kind of sending something out there, especially last week as well, I think I did send an email out there and said, hey, have you guys taken the time to take the kid out in the hallway, have a conversation, ask them, you know, is there something wrong? This is what I am seeing from you in the classroom right now. Is there anything I can do to help you? Asking questions to a student often gets a lot more results than telling them what they're doing wrong. You know, asking them what they think they're doing, asking them what you can do to help them, kind of helps to de-escalate those things. So we're doing that, we're tracking this. We, you know, have Todd and Nicole trying to dig into root causes. We did start the what is the Benjamin student, that's the WIABS that you see at the bottom of the slide before the chart. And that was something that we started this year to kind of like, hey, Benjamin student is honest, the Benjamin student takes responsibility. We have those visuals all over the school. We have done things in the past, similar to PBIS and what they're talking about with CHAMPS. This is what behavior looks like in the bathroom, you know, 1st grade behavior in the bathroom, funny, 7th and 8th grade behavior in the bathroom, not so funny. So we have had that in the past, and maybe we need to start looking at, you know, tagging on to the CHAMPS program here and seeing if that would, you know, help us in, you know, going through that in a systematic way. Okay. Attendance, continue to stress attendance. We were able to start this process earlier this year. Very similar to last year, Ms. Colburn has taken a little bit more control of it again this year. We meet once a week to track the attendance, almost every week. Sometimes we miss. Increased communication home is the #1 thing. 3 levels of letters. They get 1 letter at like, it pretty much works out to about 5 absences. Because you're looking at, you know, 10% of the school year, depending upon when they get that. The second one at 10, the third one at 15. Those are rough numbers. We do the math. Ms. Colburn has worked with the ROE much more this year with their services, going to webinars, going to some in-person things, talking with people on the phone. We have used the police to do wellness checks. We've tried to emphasize doctor's notes, continue to do research. We've got a couple different research-based books on improving attendance. And then this year we also started the tardy. We didn't track tardies last year, but baseline data for tardies we collected this year. And so in the write-up, it's kind of a little bit confusing, but I'm just gonna start with tardies. If you look at the next slide, Benjamin absence summary. A total of 41 letters went home, but 30 of those were for the first 5 absences. And then it went way down to only having 7 people that we had to send a second letter to. And then 4 that required a 3rd letter. And the 3rd letter basically is that you need to meet with me. and come into the school and have a conversation. Let me just be completely honest, none of the absence information is really, parents, you know, they kind of take it personally, and so they get upset, and you have to talk with them. Because my kid's really sick, and we understand, we're just telling you, we're doing what we're supposed to do according to state, tracking this and letting you know, is there anything I can do to help? And then we did have one student that, required a lot of attention as far as, missing school, and, you know, we kind of went, you know, with a lot of additional support from our psychologist, social worker, and outside programs. So safety, we continue to will always be a priority. Had our Alice refresher, met with G. John Morris again from Wheaton Bible Church, which is our reunification site. We brought all of our staff over to the church this year, walked over from Benjamin, which we were able to do. There wasn't too many complaints about that. And then went through what it would look like in that church, and actually having the staff see what it looks like. Last year we took team leaders, this year we took the whole staff. And then assigned reunification roles, just what teachers would do ideally if everyone was over there. Sometimes, you know, everyone, something would happen and we'd have to reduce that, but having the different roles outlined with the We Love You Guys program. So questions?
Fine.
Yes.
Think like, okay, I'm gonna start sequentially where you started.
Okay.
So, class sizes, you said that you implemented, if I understood correctly, smaller class sizes this past year solely in 7th grade, is that correct?
So we had 2 7th grade sections that were both taught by, so basically we were able to reduce 2 classes. Yeah, so Miss Aarons and Miss Moore,
Okay,
both taught classes the same time to split that, so it wouldn't affect the schedule.
and those are 7th grade teachers? Is that-
It was 7th grade curriculum. Miss Aarons is the primary because we're so small. We have one, she's usually the 7th grade teacher. Miss Moore's the 8th grade. We were able to do that in 2 sections because we lost one RTI class.
Okay,
And then Miss Moore has always kind of had a floating section where either we have an additional RTA class, she taught geometry once a year, before, instead of sending kids to the high school. So we're able to do that. This next year, we're doing the same thing in 8th grade and taking away her RTI math class. And then she's gonna be able to help taking Miss Aaron's RTI math class away. And so she's gonna be able to teach in 8th grade, which is pre-algebra and what she already teaches for her advanced students. So again, it's not an extra prep for either one of them because they both know the content. And so they're gonna be able to do that in one section of 8th grade.
okay, so then it'll be a smaller math classes in 7th and in 8th grade, am I understanding that?
Yeah, so
Okay.
2 in 7th grade.
Okay,
So you basically have your advanced section and then 2 other sections.
okay,
So we're able to do it for both other sections in 7th grade. We're
Okay.
only able to do it in one section in 8th grade. And then it's basically just a matter of trying to figure out master schedule wise. How we can do it in like 5th and 6th grade too, like having Mr. Baker and Miss Fernandez team up, just like Miss Aarons and Miss Moore do.
okay, that's what I wanted, I
Yeah.
wasn't sure that I understood, no, that sounds awesome, like, great, love that. The observation day that you implemented with the teachers this year, is that something that you plan on doing again next year?
Yeah.
Or, okay.
And expanding.
They-
So like, you know, again, we have the luxury of the schedule that's, you know, just talk about negative of the schedule. The positive of our schedule is that they get team and plan every day and they use it. But this is a good use of that. So having a day where they don't have to meet in a room as a team. And instead do this is a great use of that time. So, and it was very positively received. By everyone. I think we had to have special education teachers do it on a different day. Just because their schedule didn't line up the way everybody else's did, but we were able to do it.
And is it more informal where like any teacher gets to choose any teacher within their cohort or not necessarily?
Any period, so again, because of the schedule, so let's say Miss Moore has 2nd and 7th. So any teacher within that 2nd and 7th, and we also offered myself and Miss Teppy, if the class you want to see is not 2nd and 7th, then let me know, I'll go cover the class and you can go a different period, so.
Thank you, and then. The referrals, I know you said that you were anticipating that,
Yeah.
just see it, obviously, it's not ideal, it's not, how do you anticipate to like support for next year, I guess? Is, like, how are you gonna use that data to help you guys for next year?
Yeah, so again, talking with the staff is number one. Talking about how we can, whether it's through a champs-like situation, or if it's more at the team level of how we can support, give the same type of support and look at those, you know, because like just like attendance, let's just take that for example. Attendance wasn't attended to probably the way it should have been before last year. And that's why there's a lot of notifications to parents about, hey, you know, I've got the manpower now, and we're gonna be sending these letters, we're gonna be talking to you, we're gonna be calling, we're gonna be talking to the kids. And then point in saying that was attending to the behavior. There's probably some of those high flying kids that I see, and you know, and they had to say, you know, 5 lunch detentions. Okay, well, is that obviously is not working.
Right.
And so there has been informal, you know, we're dealing with it in an informal way, but not in a way that we're tracking. Like, you know, this time you're gonna go talk to Miss Colburn and she's gonna see if there's something wrong. We're talking with the family and getting the information about what's happening at home. Currently, is that causing this behavior? And then really, you know, a lot of those high flyers, which we have worked on, and there is a lot of things that we have done with those kids. You know, when we talk about like our modified programs, you know, I have a list of what those modified programs were for, and what we did. And I can, you know, see like, oh, okay, our physical contact total was like 23, which is way higher than we've had before. But I know why it's the 23 because I know of a couple students, not fights. I don't want to make sure we had no fights this year. Physical contact though is just, you know, you shouldn't be touching anybody else for any reason. And so kind of digging deeper as it's happening, and going through and trying to give the correct support needed, whether it needs to be a systematic way like the CHAMPS program or just be more on top of it. And then you never, you know, every grade level is so different as they come through. You know, maybe next year we have, you know, 36 total behavior. And that's just because the grades change.
An objective perspective of this data. I was actually very impressed with how low all of that behavioral data was for a school our size. It's not a large school by any means, but proportionally, these are still very low numbers. And I agree with Mike's comments about depending on the cohort of kids, or grade level of kids. Sometimes as a teacher, even in elementary school, you get that one group of kids and something is just more challenging about them than the previous class. That can happen in the middle school. You can get a group of your current 7th grade, I'm just using that as an example, but your current 7th grade students just has this one group of boys or this one group of girls. And then the next year, you don't have any small groups like that. And the data just poof, magically improves. But it literally is that one group of kids. And these could be kids who always had challenges, and despite the elementary principal's efforts to keep them in separate sections. And sometimes you see cohorts like that cycle through school system. And when you have schools as small as our 2 schools, those numbers just become more pronounced.
And I think when I did the data, it was like 87% of the students were doing exactly what they were supposed to be doing.
That's really good.
So
Do you have the data of those behaviors by like grade level too? Have you noticed that?
I have by category. So there's a report that we have to give to the state too, that goes into, you know, all different kind of demographics with that. So boy, girl, and everything you can think about. So I do have that information that I can share with, you know, with staff and pinpoint things.
Have you noticed that there's a theme somewhere or no? If you haven't, I don't like.
No, I'm not, I'm trying to, yeah, I mean, definitely had an increase in a particular grade level this year. And again, going back to the high flyers, patterns that we saw within those.
Okay.
So.
Can I ask one more
Sure.
question?
Answer any questions you want.
Do you guys have, and I don't even know if this is a need for it in the middle school, because I'm not familiar with it yet, but do you guys have like a crisis team that? Do you have a need for it, I guess you could say, a crisis team that reports, or the kids don't have like outburst behaviors within the classrooms? I'm just curious.
So we don't have, if we have a crisis team that deals with bigger, a crisis in the school.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have the, what did you guys call them? Calls, support
Oh,
calls.
okay.
The support calls is bringing the office and, we
Oh, okay.
down to, because most of the time a student will, if, they will come down to the office to see me on their own. Once the teacher tells, hey, why don't you go see Dr. Cheryl? But that's when I kind of put into play, with the smaller staff, so Ms. Colburn is number one as the social worker, and then Dr. Haneke when he is over to deal with that. And then I'll follow up. We make copies of any of the write-ups. We give those, this is based on staff feedback. Make a copy of those and give those to team leaders so then they can talk about it as a team as well. In case I don't make it to team, anything bigger, we go to team, I go to team and talk about it and try to strategize, talk about things and, again, emphasize communication home. For us, students that come to the office for the most part, I'm gonna call home or the teacher will call home, especially with the 5th grade, 6th grade. Once we get 7th and 8th grade, if they get a lunch detention and we have the same thing, make sure you bring back the signature. So that your parents saw, but.
No, I appreciate that. I just was not familiar. I didn't
Yeah.
know how that works. Thank you.
I just have a follow-up question.
Sure.
Gina's, we were talking about like grade level, and in like 5th grade, like that's our COVID babies, they were in kindergarten, have you seen like an influx, like before it was like, we were having trouble with them like at Evergreen, and have they are they still behind like in social situations or behavior wise, or is it kind of like middle schools over here, new environment, they kind of.
I think there was a transition, definitely, and I think there are, maybe some of those high flyers are in 5th grade. And it's definitely something that we have addressed now. Do I think it's overall 5th grade? No, I don't think. I think we've seen pretty outstanding, like I said, outstanding behavior for most of our students. But there have been some definite situations.
They've kind of caught up socially, or if you're.
Yeah, I think that's something that also we address with as everyday speech. That's something that Dr. Haneke and Ms. Colburn are doing in all the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade classes, and providing those lessons and expand that. I want to include that in our school improvement plan. It was kind of oversight when I did the data at the beginning of the year that I didn't include it. They kind of mentioned it, but I didn't include it in the actual plan. But they gave me some data as far as the lessons that they taught and different things that they thought were beneficial. So something I'll definitely include for next year's plan.
The Russians, I have one question. I'd like to thank Gina and Bridget. You've asked and answered many of those questions I had as well. John, thank you for putting it in perspective of where we're at on this. I'm telling you, Mike, I was alarmed by seeing the bar. This is BMS behavior for all 4 grades, right? Just 6, 7.
Yeah.
Maybe for the board's satisfaction, is everybody safe? Are the kids safe?
Oh, yeah.
Staff safe?
Yeah. Just again, I'll give some more perspective. The school district that I came from, when I came to Benjamin and I was dealing in my first year with the different things that came to me, I was like, oh, good, all right. I think, it's just like the different level of things that I was dealing with in my previous district compared to here doesn't even compare. So I mean, I have some like disrespect was the number one with this disrespect, mostly to their peers. I think we had 77 dealing with that. Disruptive, uncooperative, 22. Teacher asks you to do something, you don't do it. Teacher asks you to do something again, you still don't do it. Okay, well, here you go. Physical conflict, which I mentioned, 23, which is way higher than we normally have. again, identified definitely being worked on. Inappropriate language, again, which takes many different forms, 15. So that's 137 right there of the 173. And then you have, you know, the good thing too is I didn't see a lot of, oh, he didn't have his materials for class. Oh, he got rid of because he, you know, there are things on the referral list that, you know, we got zeros on, which I was very happy to see when I went through the data. So yes, everyone is safe.
Thank you. Okay. Take a breath. We're gonna right back to you.
You're still beating, Sarah. You're 25 minutes, that was 35.
We're going on to administrative reports. Teaching and learning.
Okay, this will be very short. Mrs. Christopher and I were able to submit the district's literacy plan to the Illinois State Board of Education that we mentioned in the last report. Again, just to remind you, the goals are to provide evidence-based literacy instruction to support the educators delivering that instruction, and also to provide equitable literacy conditions so all students can learn. So examples of that might be diverse learning materials, reading materials, multiple points of data that creates equity in those areas. In addition, there's things for PD data, progress monitoring that are part of the plan. After the submission, we were very happy to hear from Dr. Felix that we got the literacy grant from the State Board of Education. That's $3,200. We used something through HMH called Coachly this year, and it was basically Daniel DeChristopher took the lead on that. It's basically a train the trainer model where if anybody had questions with HMH, then they went to her and she would be able at any time to meet with the HMH staff. She had like a direct connection, so she can get questions answered and then go back to the staff. The staff still has a lot of online things that they can do on their own with the staff. So we're increasing that next year to 4 licenses, and I need to talk with Ms. Smith to see how we want to divide those up. But I'm assuming one to the other instructional coaches, and then maybe one for someone who's really excelling with the literature program. Yeah, and then professional development wise, I've created a professional development calendar outline for next year. Covers all the institute early release, school improvement days. Dr. McGill and the admin team, we're going to be prioritizing that on July 2nd at our retreat. And we've already started to kind of pencil things in and have preliminary discussions with Ms. Smith and myself to make sure that everybody's on board and we're ready for next year. And then school improvement plan, you just heard, happy that we were able to present to you. And it's kind of like the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Once it's over, the next day we start planning for the next year. We're going to be waiting for those IAR reports to present to you in September. We have to have the new ones in October. In between them, we'll be talking with staff, and then we continuously just kind of do it throughout the whole year. That's the point of the plan.
All right, thank you, Dr. Fitzgerald. Now, Dr. Felix, business and operations.
Yes, thank you. Quick update to the report in regards to property taxes. We did receive an additional 5.2 million on Friday after that payment, so I wish we would have got it on Thursday. So that brings our current total of 45% of the levy. We typically receive 50% by July 1. We usually receive 1 month payment in June, so we anticipate that 50% point. We already had this money invested. We were able to secure a 4.1% interest rate from the various maturity dates. So I'm excited to see what that brings. The budget year obviously is closing June 30th. Audit season has begun. Last year was a very efficient process, but I think this year is going to be better. As due to the district office staff. Last summer, the district office made a switch to move to an electronic record keeping system. I'm happy to report that all of our accounts payable, payroll, special education, financial records are currently up to date and scanned in a shared drive. So that means any financial data the auditor needs to request, invoices, employee tax deductions, are going to be easily accessible to all parties. And more importantly, we no longer have boxes of papers. So that has been a very good project, very proud of the work that they're doing. Some new grant funding, mentioned in the reports, Dr. Fitzgerald mentioned, we applied and or the application was accepted for the district literacy plan. $83,862 to supplement the cost of the professional development. Didn't implement that plan, so that was a nice benefit for Bisbee. Additionally, we thought maybe we weren't gonna get the district library grant or the state library grant, but that did come in the last week of May, and I'm happy to report that our librarians were able to get their orders in before they left for the summer. And one other that didn't make this report was Dr. Salomone applied for and received $10,000 English language learner. So that's going to be fantastic to get to some professional development for our EL staff as well as supplies and materials. Highlights from the spring legislative session wrapped up early for us. The only real highlight was the General Assembly allocated additional $300 million to our state aid program. What does that mean for Benjamin? Well, last year they allocated $350 million new dollars, and we received $500 increase in our state revenue. So I don't anticipate us getting much more than $500 more, and we won't receive any less. That is the beauty of the state program. Technology update, as we discussed, the interactive display panels are removed from all classrooms. Electronic Salvage Company estimates that each device should net us $475 in trade-in value. The total revenue we receive, including our month. All of our document cameras are scheduled to be delivered in August. But we do have a number of Catholic schools that have expressed interest in reusing all of the decommissioned document, so that'll be exciting. Speaking of, we have 5 Catholic schools come in last week to claim decommissioned furniture. I'm happy to report that we were able to outfit 1 entire tech lab, 2 preschool classrooms, 2 kindergarten classrooms, 4 primary classrooms, and 2 middle school classrooms across these districts that will now be using that instead of the landfill. We'll be able to get that to some great use. Additionally, one school is able to repurpose 4 of the newer sinks that were in the first grade. So instead of those going to the dumpster, they'll be able to use those. The vast majority
And
of
they
them
return, we're getting blessings from Pope Leo.
yeah. Part of the exchange.
That was his joke.
Well, and a vast majority of the old whiteboards and tack boards, you may have seen them by the dumpster.
Yeah.
We're also claiming, so we're very happy that a lot of this material is going to be reused for educational purposes. Huge thank you to Tim and that staff for being able to ready those donations in areas where people could easily accept.
Do we contact these schools, or how do they know that we have these materials available?
Well, funny, my mom is an insurance adjuster for the Joliet Diocese. So she connected me with some of the schools, and they put it in their newsletter. That Benjamin 25 is refreshing their classrooms. Anybody who could be interested, and we sent pictures of things, and so we got a lot of interest. They're really great to work with them. So
I like the White Sox thing. You see, Joel is a White Sox fan, so he's got it in with Pope Leo. Not he gets the blessing.
So they're gonna go left with them guys.
no, they've won a lot of games since this furniture.
Yes, they have.
Yeah.
You need more than a blessing.
Operations update, besides what Tim had provided in his report, I printed off a report from last week. For the board to see that it didn't make our report in time. Additionally, ARCONS began their 10-year health and safety survey last week. It is our goal to have their results to the facilities committee in August meeting. Additional updates to the existing buildings at Evergreen. All classrooms have had their existing casework removed. By the end of this week, all classroom floors will be bare and ready for flooring. Most classroom walls have at least 1 coat of paint on them. And we anticipate flooring to begin by, if not the end of this week, the start of next week. The Benjamin, the casework from all rooms identified for the refresh have been removed. All lockers have been removed and the new lockers are scheduled to be delivered tomorrow. By end of this week, most asbestos will have already been remediated. And flooring is expected to begin by the end of this week, or the start next week. The addition continues to move at a great pace. The bathroom floors are complete. First coat of paint is on, the ceiling grid is up, and our HVAC systems are installed and running. Personally cannot wait to show these spaces off to the kids next year. It really, it's gonna look amazing and just excited. Look ahead, next board or the August board meeting will be the tentative budget presentation, as well as the recertification of our hazardous budget. Any questions on them? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You're on superintendent's report.
Thank you, sir. So to begin with, I want to celebrate our student success. We're all aware of how much we have to be proud of in our Benjamin community. Our students are well prepared for their high school experiences, which was recently represented at West Chicago Community High School Senior Awards Night. Thank you to our employee Megan Duzing for sharing the data included in my report this evening. 4 years ago, we sent 75 Benjamin students to West Chicago High School, which comprised 14% of their total senior class this year. 22% of those seniors graduated with distinction, are from Benjamin 25. 40% of the seniors graduating with highest distinction are from Benjamin 25. 44% of their Illinois State scholars are from our school district, and 38% of their seniors receiving individual departmental awards are Benjamin graduates. And finally, 60% of their seniors, 60% of them receiving individual outside scholarships or awards came from our community. So we have a lot to be proud of. And I certainly kudos and hats off to all of the families, parents, all of their hard work, but also coming from our elementary and middle school. We really should be proud of the work that we do.
That is incredibly cool data.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Wow.
And I have a unique perspective of having been there for a year last year. And every time I came across a kid that just like blew me away, somebody would say, you know, that's a Benjamin kid. Thing that my kids went through our school district. Yeah, we really should be proud of how successful they are there. And on top of that, even if you look at the student athletes or the students in the performing arts, or every time there's an individual or a small group that excel, chances are they came from our schools. So yeah, there's a lot to be proud of. I would also like just to reinforce or remind you that we did have 2 FOIA requests since the last board meeting. Those are the 2 that were reflected in 2 of my recent weekly updates. Civic IQ Incorporated and CJ Mills. And those both were during the month of May. And finally, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to serve as your interim superintendent. This transition has been successful because of you, a board, and our incredible Benjamin staff. The existing school district teams are passionate about their work and fully committed to our students. Thank you to both Sarah and Mike for their leadership. They are very effective school principals who lead with our students and staff as their sole focus. Most importantly, all Benjamin employees believe that our students can succeed. Dr. Felix and Dr. Salomon lead the Administration Center team, determined to support all aspects of our students' learning. Also, I am grateful for Sally Garcia's commitment to our community for her talents. She is the calm magic behind the curtain for attending to all the details, whether it is the multitude of the school district's human resources responsibilities, or attending to setting up for our board meetings monthly or special, which we have had more than our share of over the last 5 months. Thank you, Sally.
Thank you.
Finally, thank you to you, the Board of Education, for trusting my interim leadership and for working hard to complete the search process for your next school district leader. Your efforts will pay dividends for our community, and I am confident that our future of our school district is very bright under Patrick McGill's leadership. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, sure.
That is my final report.
All right, well, would you like to give the SASSA or Len?
I would, I actually can give both those and they're fairly short. I did attend the last SASSA Board of Directors meeting 3 weeks ago, actually, on May 21st. Most of the meeting was devoted to finalizing plans and commitments for the next school year. Some of these included the approval of the Board of Directors meeting dates, committee assignments, the fiscal year 26 tentative budget, lease agreements for summer school and for SASSA programs for next school year. Also, there was the approval of the contract for roof repairs at the Southeast Alternative School. Additionally, the Assistant Executive Director provided an overview of all SASSA programs and services. All of those items are linked in the report in Board Book. Also, Mr. Angstrom attended the final SASSA Governing Board meeting on May 28th. The Governing Board elected their new officers to 1-year terms, approved their meeting schedule for the year, and also approved the fiscal year 26 SASSA budget, which is for public display. The next SASSA Board of Directors meeting is actually this Wednesday, and I will share an update with you through my weekly update. It is a fairly short agenda, so I'll give it all to Dr. McGill. I'm not sure it's going to be necessary to report on that at the August board meeting, but that will be available to you this Friday in my weekly. And then for Len, Dr. Felix and I attended the last council meeting of the Legislative Education Network of DuPage, which was May 23rd. Most of this in-person meeting agenda included members voting to approve the fiscal year 26 membership dues, the proposed budget, meeting dates for next school year, and the new slate of Lend officers. Additionally, co-executive directors Peg Agnos and Jen Figuarelli reviewed a series of legislative section updates. They explained the various complexities of the pending state of Illinois budget proposals, which has since passed. The budget does not negatively impact our school district. What was it, $500 possibly? So insignificant, but the good news is it didn't negatively impact our budget. Additionally, there were 2 bills of interest for elementary school districts that you may have heard of. One was the cell phone ban, which was Senate Bill 2427, and the other was the K-2 suspension expulsion bill, House Bill 3772. Both of those lost support in both chambers and failed to pass. The next Lend Council meeting is September 26th. I'm not sure what the location is going to be yet, but that will be announced probably later in August. Also in my report, I did provide you, and I think this is always a good idea, doesn't have to be every month, but occasionally remind board members of the access to your contact information for your members of the House of Representatives who represent you and state senator. So that information is linked in the report. My recommendation is just keep that handy. If something happens where we need to work with our legislators, you won't have to search for the information. We have it in. And that is all we have.
Thank you. Next we have public comment on agenda items. Has anybody submitted a blue card? Seeing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. Does any member wish to remove any item from the consent agenda for separate consideration? Hearing none, we will move on. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So, I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion? I just have one comment. To be clear, maybe it's the Comcast business service renewal, like 2 options listed. We need a list specifically which option you guys would like to. One is for 16-month term, the other is for a 12 month.
Because there is, I think we forgot to put the memo in there. That's what happened when somebody is on time. My apologies.
It's a 36 or a 60.
We were going to recommend the 5-year memo break down the cost savings. So verbalize it to you.
So we can just adjust the motion to approve the 60-month.
So since it's on the consent agenda, we've got to call that one out separately or just You guys will just have to suggest the recommendation.
No, I think you can leave it as it's on.
Yeah.
Well, I think.
Okay, a roll call please.
Member Ingstrom,
Aye.
member Brennan,
Aye.
member Sandback,
Aye.
member Miss Peterson,
Aye.
member Mr. Peterson,
Aye.
member Velazquez.
Aye.
Member Rogers.
All right, action items. May I have a motion to approve the FY 25 amended budget as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that one? Roll call please.
Member Ingstrom,
Aye.
member Brennan,
Aye.
member Sandback,
Aye.
member Miss Peterson,
Aye.
member Mr. Peterson,
Aye.
member Velazquez.
Aye.
Member Rogers.
Next, the interest transfer resolution. May I have a motion to approve the interest transfer resolution up to $111,000 of interest. The transportation, bond and interest and working cash funds to the O and M as presented.
So. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call please.
Member Ingstrom,
Aye.
member Brennan,
Aye.
member Sandback,
Aye.
member Miss Peterson.
Aye.
Member Mr. Peterson.
Aye.
Member Velazquez.
Aye.
Member Rogers.
Next, the resolution to pay the June 2025 bills. May I have a motion to approve the resolution to pay the June 2025 bills as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that one? That's just to give prior authorization to pay the payables, okay? And since we do not have a July 14th. Okay. May I have a roll call on that, please?
Member Ingstrom,
Aye.
member Brennan,
Aye.
member Sandback,
Aye.
member Miss Peterson,
Aye.
member Mr. Peterson,
Aye.
member Velazquez.
Aye.
Member Rogers.
Okay, next we have board committee appointments. May I have a motion to approve the board committee appointments as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Thanks everybody for giving your feedback on that. Is there any questions, comments, concerns on the assignments? And just as a reminder, everyone can attend these meetings since they'll be posted and made available to the public. Roll call please.
Member Ingstrom,
Aye.
member Brennan,
Aye.
member Sandback.
Aye.
Member Miss Peterson.
Aye.
Member Mr. Peterson,
Aye.
member Velazquez.
Aye.
Member Rogers.
All right. Second reading and subsequent adoption of Press Plus issue 118. I gotta read all these. May I have a motion to approve the second reading and subsequent adoption of Press Plus issue 118 recommendations as presented and includes the following policies. 260, 415, 480, 510, 520, 560, 510, 5100, 6150, 6235, 710, 720, 770, 7180, 7185, 7190, 7200, 7210, 7250, 7255, 7265, 7270, 7310, and 7340. Do we need a motion for that one? We need a motion, right? All right.
We had a comment from YouTube asking for you to repeat.
Yeah, I can, go into detail on each, on that. I think the feed cut out, we're gonna have to change that one. I just need a motion in a second.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call please.
Member Ingstrom,
Aye.
member Brennan,
Aye.
member Sandback.
Aye.
Member Miss Peterson,
Aye.
member Mr. Peterson,
Aye.
member Velazquez.
Aye.
Member Rogers.
Aye. Last, we have to approve the amended FY 25 budget. They have a motion to approve. Oh, we got one more here. Sneaky, sneaky. Second reading and subsequent adoption of policy 2150. May I have a motion to approve the second reading and subsequent approval of policy 2150 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
And that is because is that just because the committee assignments that we had? Okay.
Yeah, so we cleaned up the policy language on standing board committees. And everything else is either a community representative or a district level committee that a board member could participate in.
So all committees are going to be posted.
Yes. Standing board committees, those three committees should be posted with agendas and they are open to the public.
Well, what are those committees again? The facilities,
Policy, facilities and finance.
okay.
That's correct.
So, yeah, we'll just discuss in the future, if we do have like a finance and a facilities committee, it's made up of 4 representatives, we can join and just post it for the public.
That is correct. You have.
Okay, do we want to change?
And I'm sorry, I missed a motion, was it? Yeah, we have a second.
Roll call please.
Member Ingstrom,
Aye.
member Drinnen,
Aye.
member Snyder,
Aye.
member Ms. Peterson. Aye. Member Mr. Peterson,
Aye.
member Lonsis. Aye. Member Rogers.
Aye. Last, the amended FY 25 budget, may I have a motion to approve the amended FY 25 budget as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? And roll call please.
Member Ingstrom,
Aye.
member Drinnen.
Aye.
Member Snyder,
Aye.
member Ms. Peterson. Aye. Member Mr. Peterson,
Aye.
member Lonsis. Aye. Member Rogers.
Aye. Just got some new commentary for the discussion items. Mr. Lightly brought up that if there's any discussion that happens, corresponding from the public to the board, we notify that at a board meeting, so. Between now, last meeting and now, there's been no further communication from the board and the public, but are there any additional items that you might have?
The only thing I wanted to clarify, thank you to Dr. Felix, he did upload that memo in regards to action or consent agenda item E11E, the approval of the Comcast business renewal, to duly reflect that the recommendation is for the 60-month agreement with Comcast.
Okay, beautiful. All right. That's it. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting of the Benjamin 25 Board of Education at 8:35 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.